This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode, I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 373 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. It's about dangerous animals on our travels. Before we start, I'd like to pay my respects to the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, where I'm recording this podcast. Now, in this area, our dangerous animals tend to be on the smaller side, spiders and snakes, and I honestly think that the smaller dangerous ones bother me least, perhaps because they're the ones I'm used to. I do remember, though, when I lived in Germany, there was documentaries on TV so frequently. I'm sure I stumbled across them every week or so, all talking about how dangerous Australia was with our dangerous snakes and spiders. It was amazing to me that any Germans ever actually visited Australia, given that, but they did. And the other kind of dangerous animal story that springs to my mind is to think of bears. Now, I don't know about bears because, of course, we're fortunate not to have bears in Australia and not to have any large, crazy, scary predators, because it's the big ones that scare me. I can outrun a snake or a spider and I can be careful about not coming across them. But the big ones, well, they scare me a lot. Not even a close encounter at all, but my only vague encounter really with bears was when I was hiking in Tohoku in northern Japan a couple of years ago. We didn't even know that they had bears before we arrived, which, I don't know, seems like something we should have known, but I know now. But as we were hiking along the trails, we would come across bear warning signs, and then we did read more about there being bears in the area, but we didn't come across any. There was a few signs that they existed, but nothing particularly close. However, I keep reading in the news these days that in the last year or so, attacks by bears in Japan have risen dramatically. Like there's even been I think it's about a dozen deaths. So I did read that in the Tohoku region, there have been 11,000 sightings just this summer, and quite a few attacks amongst them. So I'm glad we went when we did, because now I fear that I couldn't even go there. I'd be too scared. So that's how I feel about encountering dangerous animals on our travels. I do not want to. But in this episode, I have 3 fabulous stories. Fabulous in the sense that everybody survives and that my 3 guests are fabulous storytellers, but they also freaked me out a little bit. So they are talking about a variety of dangerous animals on travels all around the world. So I hope that mostly you'll just find them entertaining stories with a small side helping of, hey, remember to be careful. Now, I am starting with arguably the least dangerous animal of this episode, but still one I have no desire to encounter. Satyajit Das is a true animal lover. He has crisscrossed the globe to observe wildlife, and this story is from a trip to Venezuela about 20 years ago.
One of the things that really intrigues me is in our travels, the types of animals people want to see. And one of the things that we love is snakes. Most people are terrified or horrified by snakes, and they're horrified that we actually like them, which is kind of interesting. But I think it's all got to do with the biblical story about the fall of man from Eden. You know, snakes have had a bad rap since then. But anyway, we in 2000 went off to the Llanos, which is in Venezuela. It's a massive swamp, basically, and most people know the other part of it, which is known as the Pantanal in Brazil, which of course is now on fire. And there's a little bit in Argentina called Iberá. But we went to the Llanos, which is in Venezuela. And the thing about the Llanos is it's actually not pristine wilderness. It's a series of gigantic cattle ranches, but they all have a few rooms, they have a couple of guides, and they do sort of what I call a side gig, which is ecotourism. Now, the Llanos is absolutely famous for green anacondas, which is among the world's largest snakes. And these anacondas are quite amazing. They're ambush hunters. So they sort of float in the water, and the only thing you can actually see is the eyes just above the water, and they actually remain submerged. And they obviously wait for a prey to get within range, and then they coil themselves around it, because they're actually boa constrictor type of snakes, and so they suffocate them. Now, everybody thinks they're man-eaters because ever since the film Anaconda basically made it sort of thing, everybody thinks they're man-eaters and so forth.
Yeah.
It's very unfortunate, but I don't think there's any evidence that they're man-eaters. But the interesting thing is how long they can get. Now, females can get up to about 5 meters. And to give you an idea of their circumference, they're like about 12 inches in basically circumference and diameter.
Wow.
So they're very, very big snakes.
Mm-hmm.
And they can weigh up to 70, 80 kilograms. Anyway, off we go to the Llanos to see anacondas. And the place we went to is a place called Hato Cedral, which is a very famous place for anacondas. You have to go in the dry season. And the reason is these properties become a patchwork of isolated pools, and you're looking for the snakes in these small pools of water. When you get to Hato Cedral, we had our own guide, a guy called Howard. His father had named him after Wild West films, I think. But anyway, on the property itself, there is this wonderful man called Ramon. I mean, when we saw him, he's probably long dead now, but he was in his 70s. And if you actually ever look at a documentary on anacondas from, say, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, Ramon is always in the shot.
Right.
He's in the boat. He's actually, because he's the guy who actually finds the snake for you. And he just knows more about these snakes than any person living. And that includes a scientist. Actually, most of the science that's done on anacondas would never be done without Ramon. He's a lovely man. Anyway, Ramon sort of leads us out. We're walking through this swamp. And I noticed what he was doing is looking for tracks, which is where the snake has dragged itself through the swamp. So you can see the actual very distinctive line. But then what he looks for is where it stops. He's looking for these little muddy patches with protrusions, which is like a cast around the snake, because the snakes in the dry season curl up. And what he's really looking for, I noticed, was the nostrils, because there's 2 holes, which is the nostrils they leave obviously actually uncovered. So when he found one, he sort of very, very carefully digs it out. And the thing is, everybody thinks they're dangerous, but, they're snakes and they're reptiles. So they're cold-blooded. And so they're sluggish until warmed up by the sun. So they're quite easy to handle in that state. So Ramon sort of very calmly pulls out this snake. And, so we get to see it. And then Ramon lovingly puts it back and puts all the mud back so they don't want to dry out. Actually, we managed to see about 3 or 4.
Wow.
We didn't see, the gigantic, 40-meter snake that everybody goes to look for. But we did see fairly long, about 3, 4 meters. But the funniest thing was, while we were there was this bunch of Russians. And the Russians had a completely different approach. So every morning they would go out with their guides, they would take off their shoes and they would tramp barefoot in swampy lagoons. And what they were looking to do was find the snake using their feet. Now, this is a very famous technique, which a guy called Dr. Jesus Rivas, he was a biologist and he had a show once on National Geographic 20 years ago. And he pioneered this technique of feeling for the snakes with your foot.
This sounds dangerous to me.
It is. It is kind of dangerous because, the anacondas aren't poisonous, but they have the most ferocious inward sloping teeth. And the really interesting thing is when they bite you, obviously they don't let go. And the trick to letting them go, one of the guides told us, was instead of trying to pull away, because that just rips your leg apart or your hand apart, is you actually reach into the throat of the anaconda. And what the anaconda does then is loosen its grip, trying to get a better grip. And in that instant, you got to drag your foot all out. And I'm sort of listening to this going, I don't think I'm going to try this. This is too dangerous. But anyway, the Russians are off. Basically going there. And every day their guide was just completely going bonkers with them, trying to convince them to do it the normal way.
Yes.
But they're absolutely hell-bent on doing this. And, these lagoons are pretty dangerous because if you actually forget about the anacondas, there are piranhas, which are fairly sharp-toothed, and electric eels, which could give you shocks of up to 600 volts. So they're completely oblivious to this. And, even if the anaconda, you step on the wrong part of the anaconda because you've got to find the head. Because when you put your foot on it, you sort of have to work out which way it's lying and then gradually feel your way, grab the head and pull it out. Of course, if you go the wrong way and the anaconda then coils itself around you, that's like having an elephant sit on your chest. Yeah. So it's it's not great. But anyway, these Russians every day after the day was done would be sitting there drinking as Russians do and basically complaining that they hadn't found the anaconda, which was 20 meters long. And I'm sort of looking at them going, you guys are nuts. It's just an astonishing experience to see this, you know. And probably, I don't know whether it's possible to do this now. It might be. It might be. Who knows?
It sounds ill-advised in any case.
Let's put it this way. I was quite happy for Ramon to find the snake and pull it out and show it to us and then put it back.
And you were wearing shoes, I imagine, during this.
Oh, yes. I had nice gummies up to my knee, and I wasn't. Somebody once said to me, "Aren't you afraid of snakes?" I said, "I'm not afraid of snakes, but I give them a reasonable amount of distance. Yeah. I don't get too close."
It is very, very sensible. Exactly. Giving snakes a reasonable distance is excellent advice. I've always been taught to stomp a lot and they will not come near me. And to be fair, in all my years in Australia, I have seen a few snakes, really not that often considering how many must be out there, and I have never, fortunately, come close to a dangerous encounter. But definitely wear shoes. I cannot believe those Russian travellers. Crazy story. Anyway, my next guest is Suyash Keshari. Suyash is the founder of Ameliya Safaris. He's based in India, and he has a story about a considerably scarier animal.
When you're in wildlife or when you're in the jungles, there's always chances of something new, something great, but also something that can go wrong, right? And I think I'm going to go on the story that I tell my guests all the time at the campfire, especially on the first night, to get them really scared.
Oh, no.
But it has to do with a tiger. And it happened during COVID. So going back a few years, it was in an area where I've been going since I was a kid. I grew up around that area. It's called Bandhavgarh National Park in central India. It's known for its dense population of tigers, leopards, sloth bears. We also have elephants and the Indian gaur, which is similar to your bison, but even bigger and less hairy. So you have a lot of animals there, 300 species of birds. It's beautiful, dense jungles, lots of bamboo. And I've grown up in that area. That's why I got this affection for wildlife and jungles. And over time, I found that as my calling and made it my profession. But during the lockdown, when the entire world was completely just at home, thankfully, I was lucky. Just as the lockdown lifted in India, I was able to get back to the jungles from the city. Sadly, I wish I was in the jungle itself when the lockdown hit.
Yeah, that would be better.
Yeah, 100%. So I was in Bandhavgarh, and then the second lockdown hit. So I was like, perfect, second lockdown, and I'm here in the jungles. And every day I was going on safaris. Every day I was exploring a new part of the reserve. And we found out about this private property that had been bought by a government official about 50 to 60 years ago. It was initially bought for hunting purposes, maybe more than 50, 60 years ago, because 1980s or 70s rather, hunting was banned in India.
Right.
So we decided, okay, you know what, we're going to go and check it out. And there was just one house, like very small house, tiny house in the middle of it. And it was just beautiful land throughout. We went there and we reached in the evening, me and my team members, there are four of us, and we took some beers with us. And when we reached there, we took a drive. I saw deer, I saw monkeys, I heard different animal calls, lots of birds, and I even saw marks of tigers and leopards. So by marks, I say, you know, when tigers and leopards walk in the ground, they leave their footprints, their spurs. So I saw the pug marks of a tiger, I saw pug marks of leopard and sloth bear, and I was like, guys, this is super exciting. We gotta come here next morning and, you know, start doing things and start trying to track one of these. There's marks here, they're probably in the area. And that night itself, we stopped driving, we came back to the house, we opened the cans of beers, and they were just enjoying beers on the rooftop. And it was a nice starry night, and suddenly I heard, oh, oh, I was like, oh my God, that was a tiger growling. It's very different from a lion growling. It's shorter. Everyone looked at each other. And remember, we're wildlife professionals, right? So we do this day in and day out. So for us, it's not scary. But also, every single time, it's exciting enough to just look at each other, drop the beers, go into the car, turn on the car, and then go tracking.
Right.
So that's exactly what we did. As I turned on the ignition, I started driving. And mind you, I was not drunk. I had just had like a quarter of a beer when this happened, or maybe half a beer when this happened. I started driving and, you know, going towards the area where I was hearing the growls. There are people in the back with the torchlight trying to see everything. from the left of my eye, I thought I caught something. And then I looked on the left and it looked like something that I didn't expect. It was two cows, and two cows were standing there. And I was just looking at them. And then someone at the back joked that if there's a tiger around, that these cows will definitely be gone. But we kept driving. We stopped, turned off the ignition, tried hearing for the alarm calls of any animals if they've seen a tiger or the tiger itself, but no luck. So after like an hour or so, we gave up. We came back, resumed our drinks and food, and then we decided, you know what, we need to come in the morning. If there's a tiger here, it's going to be easier to find it in the morning. Tigers are crepuscular animals, which means they're active at dawn and dusk. So we're just going to come like right before sunrise. So in the morning, we came at 5:15 a.m. We asked the caretaker of the house what had happened, and he said, you know, those two cows, one of them is missing. And we're like, oh my God. We started following the tracks from last night. You know, once we started driving where we were driving, we found the tracks, huge male tiger pug marks, like this big, bigger than the size of dinner plates. And we started tracking it in the vehicle. So there came a point during tracking that I couldn't go any further with the vehicle. So we decided, you know what? Okay, no problem. We're going to track it on foot. And again, my team and I are trained. We are professionals at what we do. So I don't advise people go tracking any wild animal on foot themselves. And one of our team members was quite young. He's inexperienced. So, you know what? He said, no, I'm not going to go. I said, are you okay? Are you going to be fine by yourself in the car? He said, yeah, absolutely. So he sat in the car and then four of us got off. We don't have anything for our protection besides a stick. You're not allowed to carry firearms in the jungles of India. It's illegal.
Right.
So we just have sticks. We have like strong sticks. Three of us have sticks. One of us refuses. And that's one of my team members. He's like, you know, I don't need it. Everything will be fine. Whatever. I was like, okay. So we're walking. And then the density of the bushes are so much that you're actually like moving through it like that. You know, any animal can be anywhere and you just don't know. So we came to an opening and we saw a riverbed, and we saw that the tiger pug marks have gone to the riverbed. The tiger has drank water, crossed the river, and then kind of climbed the bank and then gone on the other side of the bank. So we decided to do the same. But when I saw the pug marks, I got the hint that they're extremely fresh. So much so that, like, you know, the tiger must have gone maybe half an hour to 1 hour ago. I told that team member, look, you need to have a stick or something with you. And he was still saying no. So I pulled a bush, like a large bush. It's called a lantana bush, and I just gave it to him. We crossed the river, and as soon as we came on the bank, the guy in the front says, "Sir, tiger." And there's a huge tiger just 20 meters away from us, laying next to the cattle carcass.
Oh.
Okay, the dead cow. And the tiger suddenly gets up of the sound. These four grown men with sticks and loses it, right? So now the animal's thinking fight or flight. And the tiger decides it's want to fight, not flight.
Oh no.
It comes rushing towards us like that. And immediately because we're trained, immediately the whole thing completely shifts. And instead of running, we're like, hey, we put our hands up in the air. And then with the stick, I start hitting the ground. And all three of us are hitting the ground. The tiger immediately stops. And you can hear it snarling. You could almost smell him. And then almost the tiger kind of puts the reverse gear, goes back. Okay, it goes back and comes a second time like that. The guy in the front falls down. Imagine the guy in the front is down and the tiger's about to jump on him, where the guy with the bush throws the bush at the tiger.
Oh no.
And that completely diffuses the situation. The tiger goes back like that and then runs away.
Wow.
That was the closest encounter I had, and it was just insane. It was completely insane.
That is really another crazy story. And I hope that Suyash never has an even closer encounter with a tiger than this one. I think that's enough for one lifetime. My final guest is Neil Laird, who's a documentary producer. He's had an amazing career, and he tells me about a particularly exciting encounter he and his subjects had while filming a show.
I'm a television producer by trade. What that means, I do documentary TV work for National Geographic, BBC, Animal Planet, PBS. So most of my work has been through archaeology and lost tombs and treasures, which is fantastic. And tell tons of stories. I did one very strange show for Animal Planet 10, 12 years ago called Get Out There. It did not last long. It got out there, just stayed out there. It never came back. But the concept, while noble, was pretty flawed. where we would take American families that couldn't afford or didn't take time for holidays, and we would give them an adventure into national parks around the U.S. But one of the first episodes I did was with a family from San Diego. And the reason they really didn't travel was because they really couldn't be bothered to, I learned. If the dad just, would much rather be online making money or whatever, and the kids didn't want to leave their pool. They were not up for like the great outdoors anyways, which is a bit of a drag when I got there. But then they get to pick out of the hat where they're going. And we were sitting on the Grand Tetons in Wyoming, which I don't know if you've been to, but it's gorgeous. It's one of my favorite national parks of the U.S. It has the Grand Teton, and it has all manner of animals in it, from the bison to the grizzly to the otters and everything in between. And this family was very dissatisfied the entire time because I think all they wanted to do was sit by the pool, and mom wanted to drink Mai Tais. Dad wanted to get back to when the internet was. But we would get different rangers to take us out and to show us the animals, which was great. So in a way, we have a slow history lesson. The national park was working with Discovery Channel, who owns Animal Planet, to make these shows. The trouble with this shoot, and it wasn't the family's fault or the camera person's fault or anything else, was we weren't seeing a lot of animals. We saw like maybe a bison down in the valley behind like a picket fence. We saw some beavers making a dam. The big daddy, when you go to the Grand Tetons, is you want to see the bears. You want to see the black bears, you want to see the grizzly bears. So we could not find any for 2 or 3 days of tracking with the ranger. And then finally, Ranger Sue was the woman. I can still remember a little pointed hat. She goes, "Oh, I know a place where we can at least go and we can see the animals. We can get some good B-roll, which is images. The family can react to it." Sadly, it was along a busy road where everybody stops to watch the bears eat berries and such. It's lovely for close-up shots, but the family was not feeling it. The cameraman, who was like from Wyoming, and he's like, "Mr. Oh, we can do so much better." He is itching to get a better shot. And we have 2 cameras, and this is important to explain. So the family is wired, so we can hear all their reactions. And then you have one camera person on them and the ranger, and then another one who sits back and gets the animals and the B-roll and the nature actual history. And it's usually on sticks, on tripods, so it's beautiful shots. And I mentioned that because Ranger Sue said, "Well, I have an idea. I know how we can get some good shots. I usually don't do this with people, but you're the Animal Planet, your Discovery Channel, and this family needs a real adventure. I'm going to take you up this little path." So we go up this hill, and it's not too far from the main road. It's just like a little path that goes up and twists around. And right away, Ranger Sue says, "Oh, I see a big old grizzly bear up there. We can get some good shots. You're with me, you're okay." And I'm thinking, really? You got a loud family from San Diego following you, and you got a camera crew of like 8, as well. But she goes, "I know what I'm doing." She goes up the path, and I'm down on the road. I stay with the cameraman on sticks watching the wide shots. So I'm not there when this happens. But all I see looking up the hill is this enormous grizzly bear getting on its hind legs and chasing an 8-year-old girl and her family down the hill.
Oh, no.
I later find out that what happened was Ranger Sue walked the family between a mother and her 2 cubs.
Doesn't Ranger Sue know better?
We started calling her Deranger Sue after that.
Even I know this basic rule of being around bears, and we don't have bears.
You watch that from a Disney movie, you saw as a kid or something, you just know you don't do this. Clearly, Sue didn't realize that she was walking between them, though she should have sussed it out a little bit before, 2 kids, age 8 and 10, are chasing behind her. With a full camera crew, mind you, on film forever. So, she gets up there and she gets between them, and Mama doesn't like this, accosting of her pups. So she chases them down the hill. And I'm still on the road. Mind you, it's no more than 50, 60 meters. I can see it all. And the cameraman up top is like, he's a local gruff guy. He knows. He's away. He goes, "Okay, I'm okay. This is a bluff charge," which means Mama just says, "Get the hell out of my backyard."
Okay.
And the guy below is wide-eyed, my cameraman, because he is getting the most amazing footage. And I'm thinking, like, we have got the billboards for Times Square. We have got the show in this one scene. And the family comes down, and for the first time in like 2 weeks, they are wide-eyed with wonder. They have seen nature. So I am pulling the family over and say, "Okay, I can't remember their names. It's been too long. So tell me, Father Ted, what did you think?" "Oh my God, I understand the power of the outdoors now. And oh my God, and he is alive, and you can hear his heart beating." I have my headphones on. You can hear their hearts beating in my microphone. I mean,
Wow.
They are both terrified, but they have been woken up from their slumber. They are no longer hibernating, And so I interview all 4 of them, and they're quite excited about it. And I'm thinking we've got the best thing because I know we have the B-roll and the coverage. And then Sue comes down rather sheepishly.
Yeah.
And I pull Sue over and I say, Sue, what happened? Tell me about that. And if looks could kill, I would not be talking to you right now. Because Sue gave me dagger eyes saying, well, you're not going to show this, are you? You're not going to put this on TV, are you? So I hedge my bet and say, well, gosh, Sue, I don't know what we have yet. That did not assuage her. She gave me a look to die for, and then she got in her Jeep and she left us there. And she zipped back to the headquarters. She just abandoned us. She fled the scene. So there I am with this family who's wide awake. Now they want to go see, coyotes or something. Their inner soul has been tapped. But as I'm going back to the headquarters to catch up with Sue and say there might be some damage control here, I got a call from my boss in Washington, D.C., where Discovery was then based, saying, what the hell have you done? I have just got a call from the head of the U.S. Park Forest Service saying that all Discovery shows across the country are banned and they have to get out because you provoked a bear and nearly killed a child.
That's not what happened. I know that.
Exactly. And I'm trying to explain this. We got IMAX films, big film being shot in Yellowstone and then in Glacier Bay and all this stuff. I have got them all thrown out until I get to the headquarters and explain myself. And as I get to the headquarters, they only want me and the main cameraman who was up there with the crew. Everybody else has got to wait outside. And then a helicopter appears. And like the headquarters from Yellowstone, the guy, whatever, Key Park Ranger, he is helicoptering down to have this emergency meeting with me. We get in there and he sits down. Ranger Sue is nowhere to be seen, by the way. Ranger Sue has disappeared into the woods. But the big cheese is there and he doesn't seem too pleased. And he goes, okay, tell me what happened. And I explained, as I just explained to you, that it was a mistake and we got through it, blah, blah, blah. He goes, okay, let me see the footage. So we show him the footage. He goes, oh, okay. Well, this isn't bad at all. You did everything you needed to do. Okay. Okay, now rewind it and hit record and record over it. And you can stay in the park.
This is a tragedy.
My cameraman, who, he had thoughts of Emmys and BAFTAs in his head, he's got a single tear coming down his cheek, I think. As he rewinds it, the first thing I'm thinking is, well, we have two cameras. They don't know about the B camera. But then, of course, what am I going to do? I'm going to narc out the National Park Service or Discovery Channel so they get booted later on. It's like, I'm not that far up the food chain to do that. So we record over it, and we are allowed to stay. But all of that footage and all that scene went away. The show did not win an Emmy, and I don't think it rated very well, and it quickly slunk off to oblivion.
It is such a shame that this experience didn't get to our screens, but at least Neil has a fantastic story to tell. As did everybody in this episode. Thank you so much for listening to episode 373 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. A huge thanks to my guests who were all particularly great storytellers. I not only enjoyed our conversations as we recorded them, but I actually had heaps of fun re-listening while editing as well. I had the same tension again, even though I knew they all survived. It's crazy. So if you want to know more about them, you can first of all look up Satyajit Das's book, Wild Quests. It's Journeys into Ecotourism and the Future for Animals. Some of these cool stories there. I'll leave a link in the show notes to that book. Also, Suyash is from Ameliya Safaris. So if you want to hear that story in person, look up ameliyasafaris.com. And finally, I chatted with Neil Laird, more about Neil at neillaird.com. And he also is a fiction author of Prime Time Travellers novels. I'll leave a link. He's got 2 so far in the series, and I'll leave a link to those. Come and tell me about your animal experiences in the Facebook group or LinkedIn group for Thoughtful Travellers. I'll leave links in the show notes, or just search for Thoughtful Travellers on those platforms. And of course, keep in touch via the newsletter at thoughtfultravel.substack.com. All of these links and more in the show notes. For today's episode, you can find them at notaballerina.com/373. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.